Well, good morning again. As I mentioned earlier, we are entering into a part of the year that is always an exciting time, always full of activities. It is the holiday season is upon us once again. Yesterday, I took my kids over to the new Dunkin' Donuts that we have in Owasso, and we were sitting there having some donuts, and I noticed that they were already playing Christmas music in the Dunkin'. I was like, wow, this is really already begun, but it is a sign that the season is here. After that, we went to Sam's Club to get a couple of things and noticed all of the Christmas decorations that are already out, and truth be told, they've been out for a couple of weeks already over there. The season is upon us. When we went to Reese's to do some grocery shopping, there were displays for all of the fixings for all of the Thanksgiving feasts that are upcoming. And it is the season that we are getting into that mindset, getting into that mode, getting ready for the holiday season and all that it brings our way. And as we go about and as we do these things, we see from all sorts of sources and all different angles a reminder over and over to be thankful. That's what this season reminds us of. You see it written on decor that is around the place. You hear it in messages that are given even in commercials on TV. We are reminded over and over again to be thankful, and I think that is a very good and important thing for us to be reminded of, is to be thankful. I've preached on this topic almost every year when it comes around to this time of the year to talk about gratitude. And I've mentioned more than once that there are numerous, actual health benefits from being people that are more grateful and engaged in giving thanks. It is good for our mental and emotional well-being, and it actually improves our levels of stress and even heart health. I won't dwell on that this year because that's all well and good. But if we are honest, and this is what I want to focus on, if we are honest, sometimes there's just one really big glaring problem with all of that. And that is that we just don't feel it. Like, we know that we should be thankful. We recognize and we acknowledge that there are numerous things for us to be thankful for, but for some reason, we want to be thankful, but we just don't feel it. We may even say that we're thankful and believe that we are, but something inside of us, we don't have that true feeling of gratitude. That's what I want to focus on in this 3-part series. And we're going to seek to recover the gratitude that may have been stolen in some way from our hearts. So this season, rather than merely saying to be thankful, just to remind you to be thankful, I want to ask and explore the question, what within us sometimes stands in the way of our thankfulness? And what are the things that we can do to remove those barriers so that we find our way to actual gratitude? The first, when we're thinking about the barriers that stand in the way of experiencing true gratitude, the first that comes to mind is an understandable but a flawed assumption. An understandable but flawed assumption, and that is this, that I might think that the more that I get, the more I will have to be thankful for, and so then my gratitude will come more easily. And so I will pursue getting more so that I have more to be thankful for. And there's some logic to that, right? If I have more, certainly I do have more to be thankful for, but it doesn't always work that way. And a great example of this kind of misguided pursuit comes from what I've mentioned before is one of my favorite books of the Bible, the book of Ecclesiastes. Where we have traditionally thought to be Solomon. We have a very wealthy and wise king who is trying to search out, what is life really all about? And he writes this whole book of Ecclesiastes. It's almost like his journal of his exploration of what is good in life, and what is there to have. And this is from chapter 2, verse 4. He says, I tried to find meaning by building huge homes for myself. By planting beautiful vineyards, I made gardens and parks and filling them with all kinds of fruit trees. I built reservoirs to collect the water to irrigate my many flourishing groves. I bought slaves, both men and women, and others were born into my household. I also owned large herds and flocks, more than any of the kings who had lived in Jerusalem before me. I collected great sums of silver and gold, the treasure of many kings and provinces. I hired wonderful singers, both men and women, and had many beautiful concubines. I had everything a man could desire. And so he searches out, and we could question some of these choices along the way, but he searches out what could be the great thing, what would be the most enjoyable thing, and he pursues all of these pleasures in life. This right here is he has everything. This is like the Jeff Bezos, the Elon Musk of the ancient world. And we would look at all of the things that this person, this king might have, and even if we question the morality of some of the things that he has, we might say, wow, if I had all of that, man, I would be very grateful. I would be so over the moon happy with all that I have, I couldn't help but just overflow with thanks to God for all of this. But he goes on to say this. He says, I became greater than all who had lived in Jerusalem before me. My wisdom never failed me. Anything I wanted, I would take. I denied myself no pleasure. I even found great pleasure in hard work, a reward for all my labors. But as I looked at everything I had worked so hard to accomplish, it was also meaningless. Like chasing the wind. There was nothing really worthwhile anywhere. And so he's pursuing all of these things and amassing great success and wealth and all the comforts that an ancient world could offer. And he says at the end that it's all meaningless. None of it, not a single bit of it was worthwhile, he says. The problem with the constant pursuit of more is that whatever level we achieve, there's still more to pursue. So if our eyes are set on more than what we have, then we will always be seeking more than what we have. We will never be satisfied. It's a destination that you keep driving towards and you never arrive. You never have enough. And when we see others that have more than us, then we find ourselves envying what they have and think, well, maybe if I search out what they have, then I'll be happy. And it's a constant focus then, not on what we have, but what we don't have. No matter how much we have, we focus on what we don't have, and it makes it all but impossible to appreciate what we actually have. We can think to ourselves, I would be so grateful if I just had more money, more stuff at home, or maybe it's not even material things. I would be so grateful if I had more respect from my peers. I would be so grateful if I had more friends, if I had more opportunity to do this or that, if I had a little more excitement and adventure in my life, if I just had a little more time to do the things that I want to do. Whatever the more is that we seek, if our gratitude is waiting on more blessings, more achievement, more whatever, then we'll get stuck in our ingratitude. If we're waiting for the right thing to come down the line to have gratitude, then we will get stuck in ingratitude. The time for gratitude, wherever you are in your journey, the time for gratitude is now. Not when I get that promotion, not when I get my student loans paid off, not when I find the one that I'm going to marry, not when I am able to upgrade my vehicle, whatever. And we can be grateful for those things if and when they come as well, but the time is now. Even if it's a difficult season right now. even if it's a time of heartbreak, even if there are challenges that you're not sure yet how you're going to overcome, still, now is the time for gratitude. Because gratitude keeps our eyes on the God who is always there through all those challenges. Gratitude points our gaze towards Him. Ingratitude is a description of the world around us. Ingratitude is the rhythm of the culture that just wants more and has forgotten God. Paul describes it in Romans 1:21. He says, although they knew God, they did not honor Him as God or, what? Give thanks to Him. But instead of honoring and giving Him thanks, they became futile in their thinking, and their foolish hearts were darkened. And it just goes down this dark path of drifting away from God and towards idolatry. That's the description of the world, but it is ingrained in this, interwoven with ingratitude. But with our eyes on Him, we can, as J.D. read for us, in 1 Thessalonians 5:16, we can rejoice always, pray without ceasing, and give thanks in all circumstances. In all circumstances. It says this is the will of God in Christ Jesus for you. A lot of times we're wondering, what is God's will? And that's a good and fair question to ask. But at least in this case, we're told part of what God's will is for you. And it's these things: rejoicing, praying, and giving thanks. All the time, in all circumstances. There's a lot of technology advancing around, virtual reality and augmented reality. And if you don't know what that is, augmented reality is maybe some glasses, or even you can hold up your phone and do it sometimes, but you see the world around you overlaid with other things, digital things, pointing out objects or things that are, digitally made, showing up there as if they're in real life. And I've wondered, what if you could have some augmented reality glasses to put on that just highlighted around you all of your blessings? If you could just look around and see, oh, there's a blessing, oh, there's a blessing that I forgot that I had, and just start to recognize the ways that you are surrounded by God's care. I think we would be surprised, even knowing how much is there, I think we would still be surprised how much was highlighted. Truth is, there will always be more to pursue. There will always be something more to wait for, something that we wish that we had. What I wanted to recognize this morning in this lesson is that the pursuit of more is a trap. And it's a trap that we may not even know that we are in. And it's one of the things that blocks our hearts from experiencing true gratitude. So the question this morning is, how do we escape that trap? How do we overcome it? And if you're not in it today, you might find yourself ensnared in it down the road. And so how do we escape the trap of pursuing more and become more grateful people in the process? Well, I'd suggest that instead of pursuing more, we go the other way. Instead of pursuing more, we go the other way. Rather than a focus on getting, we shift our focus, our attention to giving. Skip that. We can be liberated from the endless pursuit of more by focusing our efforts on giving. We can be liberated from the endless pursuit of more by focusing our efforts on giving. Recently, a few weeks ago, I bought a leather desk mat for my desk. And when it came, it was rolled up in a tube in the box that it came in. And so when I took it out and tried to unroll it, the thing was like it was like a rainbow on my desk. It was still holding the shape of how it was rolled up before. And so I had to roll it up in the other direction, right, to kind of bend it the other way. And I rolled it up in the opposite direction and then shoved it under my couch to hold it that way and left it over the weekend. Now it lays pretty much flat on my desk, but it was the effort of, it was going one direction, and so it needed to get pushed the other way to make it come back. And I think that's maybe an image of what we can picture is happening as we shift our attention away from just trying to get into giving. We're rolling ourselves the other way, so to speak. We can be blessed with many things, not just material wealth. We can give in many ways out of what we have. Of course, there is the material wealth, but there's also other ways we've been blessed with various skills and the knowledge that we have, or the place and influence that we have. All of the blessings that God has placed in our lives become resources for doing the good that God has called us to do. So Paul advises Timothy on how to lead those in the church in Ephesus who have a lot of wealth. Paul writes to Timothy, his protege, and he says, as for the rich in this present age, they have a lot of material goods. He says, charge them not to be haughty or arrogant, nor to set their hopes on the uncertainty of riches, but on God, who richly provides us with everything to enjoy. They are to do good, to be rich in good works, to be generous and ready to share, thus storing up treasure for themselves as a good foundation for the future, so that they may take hold of that which is truly life. He says, instruct those who have a lot to start to see the things that they have as resources to do the good that God has put in front of them to do. Use those things for good. And so we should use what God has given us to do the good that God calls us to, rather than viewing what we have as an end in itself. It is about more than that. And so we can be liberated from the endless pursuit of more by focusing our efforts on giving, on applying our resources, our blessings. But how? How does giving work to increase my gratitude? That's what we're after this morning, right? I want to feel more gratitude, a more grateful heart. How does giving function to do that? I mean, isn't it counterintuitive? If I'm giving away things, don't I then have less? And then I have less to be thankful for? See, there's some logic to that, isn't there? How can I be more grateful if I have less? By giving it away. So let's imagine three reasons. There's more, but let's imagine three reasons this morning why that works. First is this: giving softens our hearts to others' needs. If we have a perspective of wanting to be people who are generous and giving, then we're looking around to find the needs of others around us. One of the greatest and most meaningful blessings that we have in life is our relational connections. Even more than the stuff we have, right? The people in our lives are the greatest blessing. And the love that we experience and share between each other in these relationships is one of the great joys of life. And giving to others is a way that we invest in that greater blessing. We invest in relationship. We invest in the well-being of others. And with that in mind, we should eagerly be looking. We should be looking for. We should be praying for opportunities to give to others. We should go out into the world and just have that mindset of, who can I bless? No matter what I have to offer. Whether it's lots of money or something else. Whatever I have to offer, how can I bless others around me? And as we do that, we become more and more aware of the need that is all around us. Again, if you put on those goggles again, and instead of highlighting the blessings, that highlighted the needs around you, imagine what you would see. That's the vision that we want to have. There's so many needs that we may have glossed over, not noticed. John reminds the church in 1 John chapter 3, He says, if anyone has the world's goods and sees his brother in need and closes his heart against him, how does God's love abide in him? Little children, let us love not in word or talk, but in deed and truth. Like when you recognize the needs of people around you, of the brothers and sisters around you, when you recognize those needs and you engage your blessings to help, you're showing love. When you don't do that, when you refuse to notice, or you notice and you refuse to help, how can you say you're expressing the love of God? Because that's what God's love does. And so as we seek out ways to bless others, as we seek out ways to give, it is training our hearts, aligning them with the way that God views other people. It trains our hearts to love and to care. You know, love and gratitude, those two things have some things in common. One of the things is that we can tend to think of both love and gratitude as merely a feeling that we have. Like, I feel love. I feel grateful. We can think of it as merely a feeling. And they are feelings, but they're more than that. Love and gratitude are virtues of action. They are virtues of action that are based on the goodness of God. They are rooted in His love that values people. And when we act in ways that are loving, when we act in ways that are grateful, we are cultivating those feelings within us. Sometimes we expect the actions to flow from the feelings, but often it's the actions that cultivate the feelings. And so I act loving, and it teaches my heart to love. I act grateful, and it teaches my heart to be grateful, you see. So we want to pursue these things, and so we pursue seeking to act loving, to show grace to the world around us, and our hearts will follow. The more we engage in a practice of generous giving, the more our hearts will be shaped to notice and care for others, which lays the groundwork for a greater experience of gratitude. And so we can be liberated from the trap of pursuing more by giving, because giving softens our hearts to others. And that lays the groundwork for the next part. Paul mentions his own great gratitude, his own giving, his own generous spirit that served as an example here in Acts 20. He met with the elders there as he was getting ready to go to Jerusalem. And he reminds them, he says when he was with them, I coveted no one's silver or gold or apparel. You yourselves know that these hands ministered to my necessities and to those who were with me. In all things I have shown you that by working hard in this way, we must help the weak. Remember the words of the Lord Jesus, how he himself said, it's more blessed to give than to receive. More blessed to give than receive. This is one of those phrases that has worked its way into being sort of a popular just proverb in secular culture even. And I wonder if a lot of people that say it even know that it comes as a quote of Jesus, that it is more blessed to give than to receive. Giving softens our hearts to others. And also, as we do that, as we find ways to give, giving reminds us of what we have to give. Right? So if I'm going to give to others, I've got to evaluate, well, what is it that I have to be able to give? And a lot of times we find that when we're trying to give to someone else, we have more than we expected, more than we thought we did. It's easy for us to tell ourselves that we have nothing to give. We recognize a need and say, wish I could help, but I have nothing to give. And the fact is, recognize that it may be true that there are times that are tough financially. That's absolutely true. But I think that if we take some time to reflect on what God has given us, the resources that are actually at our disposal, individually and collectively, we may find that we have more to give than we thought. We may find that we have more money, more material goods than we thought we did. But even if not, we can say, do I have food to share with someone who is hungry? Do I have a car to give someone a ride? Do I have time to spend listening to someone's story? Do I know how to fix my neighbor's broken fence? Do I have some life experience that I can share to help someone to find their way in a similar process? We have often much more to give than we might have expected. Paul had worked, said he was on his way to Jerusalem when he met with those Ephesian elders. He had worked to gather up support, some money to take to that church in Jerusalem to show the care of the church around that part of the world. And he wrote to the Corinthian church, and he says about taking up that collection, he says, "We want you to know, brothers, about the grace of God that has been given among the churches in Macedonia. For in a severe test of affliction, their abundance of joy and their extreme poverty have overflowed in a wealth of generosity on their part. For they gave according to their means, as I can testify, and beyond their means, of their own accord." And so he's making reference to something that I think he found inspiring, something that he thought was great and amazing, and it sets an example for other churches to see. He's like, look, he pairs together their extreme poverty and an overflowing of wealth. He says, look, they just gave out of an abundance that they didn't know they even had. Even in the midst of their affliction, even in their poverty, they overflowed with a wealth of generosity. I'm just saying that we may have more to give if we examine what we actually have. There's no denying that times can be tough, and we may be the one in need ourselves at times. And there is virtue in humbly accepting help as well. But whatever our circumstance, if we will have generous spirits that seek to give out of what we do have, we'll find more blessing than we realized, which will lead us to gratitude. And so giving softens our hearts to others' needs. Giving reminds us of what we have to give. And third, giving invigorates our trust in God. As we give, we find that we have to rely on Him. It invigorates our trust in our God. God has given us many things in this life to be grateful for, things that show His love and His care for us and the way that He makes sure that we're taken care of. He is our ultimate provider. They show us that He loves us, that He cares for us. As God gives us things, as He pours blessing into our lives in many different ways, there is a temptation there to receive it and grip it with white knuckles, as if we're afraid to lose it. Whatever God gives me, I've got to hold tight. I've got to cling to it. And in doing so, we can sometimes even elevate the gift above the giver. Like, that's what's important to me, is to hold on to what He has given me. But can we receive all of God's blessings with open hands? And that is to say, we are ready and willing to embrace whatever He sends our way, but we also keep our hands open, ready to pass them on to share with others who need it. Could we see what God gives us as bread for the day? What we need for that moment? An equipping to provide for us and to pass on so that we are ready to help? Can we trust that as we pass on God's blessing to us to someone else, that the one who provided before will provide again? You think of the Israelites in the wilderness who wondered what they were going to eat until God provided them bread from heaven, manna on the ground. And they collected it every day, and then there was a provision to say, don't collect it on the Sabbath day, right? You would have enough the previous day to supply your need, but don't collect more than you need for each day other than saving up for the Sabbath. And if you collected more than you needed, if you tried to hoard it for yourself, then it would rot. And he was teaching them to trust that, every day God will provide what you need that day. That you don't have to cling tightly to the previous day's stuff in fear that he won't provide the next. That you can trust that he will be there. If he was there yesterday, and he was there today, he will be there tomorrow as well. Hebrews 13, verse 5. Keep your life free from the love of money. Be content with what you have, for he has said, I will never leave you nor forsake you. This is how we can, if we get this in our hearts, we can be free from the love of money, like thinking that that's what we need the most. If we trust that he's with us, and he's not going to leave us, he's not going to forsake us. If we trust that he's there, we can let go of the love of money and that pursuit. We'll talk some more about the contentment aspect of it next week. In the topic for next week. But again, we give out of God's blessings. When we do that, we aren't giving something that is irreplaceable. We are giving something that God has provided, of which he can provide much, much more. And our willingness to let go and to share is an expression of faith, to know that he will be there. Jesus said in Luke 6, give and it will be given to you. Give and it will be given to you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over, will be put into your lap. For with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. There's much that could be said about that, but just recognize that as we give, God gives. God provides. And this is not a ploy to get you to put more money in the plate. That's not the point of this message. The point is to have a generous spirit that is looking for ways to help, that is looking for others in need, and seeking to be the one through whom God provides help. That's the challenge this week. Challenge is to just take some time to consider all that God has blessed you with. Pray that the Spirit would open your eyes to see the blessings that you've overlooked. And as you notice the blessings that you have, offer prayers of thanks to God for them. Ask God then to show you what and how to give out of what he's given you. Pray that time and again this week, and as you walk away from those prayers, begin to look for the answer. Begin to look for open doors of opportunity to give, to help. Walk through your week in expectation that God will lead you somewhere and will put you in a position to help and will provide all that you need to do so. As we begin to wrap up this morning, I want to return back to Ecclesiastes, to the king who had everything, and found it meaningless. His insight was this in chapter 5. Those who love money will never have enough. How meaningless to think that wealth brings true happiness. The more you have, the more people come to help you spend it. So what good is wealth? Except perhaps to watch it slip through your fingers. People who work hard sleep well, whether they eat little or much, but the rich seldom get a good night's sleep. You see why this is one of my favorite books in the Bible? It's just bursting with wisdom and just bursting with like these tongue-in-cheek kind of like, it's almost entertaining the way he states some of these things. But he points this out. If money's what you're pursuing, look, you're just never going to have enough. You're never going to reach the point of satisfaction that you've just finally like, oh yeah, I've arrived. I have enough. Or maybe we should just start telling ourselves wherever we are, I've got enough. I've got enough. If we're worried about getting more, then we're going to be worried about losing what we have too. That's what he means by the people who are rich seldom get a good night's sleep. Because that's what's on their mind is how do I achieve more and how do I keep from losing what I already have? But the laborer, their sleep is sweet, he says. If we think that what we really need is more in order to be grateful, we just need some more stuff. We recognize, as the title of this message is, that more is never enough. It is a moving goalpost. When we focus on the gift rather than the giver, we miss an important truth, that ultimately the giver himself is the gift. The giver himself is the gift. And so more is never enough, but our God always is. More is never enough, but our God is always enough. Question for us is to reflect on, is he what we desire above all else? If not, why? We need to reorient our hearts. We need to teach our hearts to desire him. The truth is that he gives all of himself. If you want him, you got it. You want him, you got it. If you want money, there's no guarantees. He is enough. Psalm 73, verse 23. Nevertheless, I am continually with you. You hold my right hand, you guide me with your counsel, and afterward you will receive me to glory. Whom have I in heaven but you? And there's nothing on earth that I desire besides you. My flesh and my heart may fail, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever. The greatest gift of all is one that cannot be taken from you. The world may strip us of everything else that we have, but we will always have him. They cannot take our God from us. We cannot misplace him and lose him in the couch cushions. We have our God always. And because we have the great giver who is always with us and overseeing us and taking care of us, it means that we can give freely. We can give generously. And as we do so, we only increase our bond with him as we represent his grace to a world that desperately needs to see it, now more than ever. So may we give up the pursuit of more as a means of achieving happiness. May we be eager to turn the flow upside down and give as much or more than we receive. And may our godly generosity lead us to a greater sense of gratitude, and may it cause gratitude to spring up in those God blesses through us. In just a moment, I'll be at the back of the room with the elders. And if you are in need of anything at all, if you want somebody to pray with, if you just want to talk to somebody, you want to begin a Bible study, or maybe you're ready to be plunged into the waters of baptism this morning, we'd love to do that today. Whatever you need, we'll be back there to help you with that during the next song. But let's wrap up with this final passage. May God be gracious to us and bless us and make his face to shine upon us, that your way may be known on earth, your saving power among all nations. Let the peoples praise you, O God. Let all the people praise you. If we can help you this morning, please reach out.